we move on to our last but not least keynote speaker today. Yukai Chou is an author and international keynote speaker on gamification. He's the original creator of gamification framework Octalysis, and the author of Actionable Gamification, Beyond Points, Badge, and Leaderboard. He is the founder of the Octalysis group and has been a regular speaker and lecturer on gamification worldwide, including organizations like Stanford, Accenture, TED, Gamified India, Huawei, and the Innovation Center in Denmark, Kingdom of Bahrain, and many, many more. Now we'll welcome Yukai to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello everyone, thank you for having me here. Today we're going to talk about a framework of actionable gamification, beyond points, badges, and leaderboards. And I think there was a pretty good intro of myself already, but I'll be your guild leader for today. Just a few quick things I want to cover is I started researching into gamification in 2003, so it made me one of the earlier pioneers of gamification. At the beginning it was a lonely passion, people didn't really understand it or believe in it, but I believe in the power of utilizing game design to change desired behavior. So I stuck to it, and throughout the years I've started a few different companies, and in the last 3 years I've been very honored to be rated a top gamification guru. The two European organizations have this top 100 list, and they put me number one, which I always make the disclaimer that it doesn't mean I'm the best at anything, but it's just always nice to have a bio, which is why it's there. Cool. Oh, and recently, I just became an author, Actionable Gamification, Beyond Points, Badges, and Leaderboards. So it took 2 years to write. Alright, so for those who don't know about gamification, just a quick intro. Gamification is basically applying all the fun, exciting elements that you find in games, and applying them things that are called non-game boring contexts. Things that you have to do, but you don't necessarily want to do. Healthcare, education, training. Now, I think the core of gamification is what we call human-focused design, as opposed to function-focused design. So most systems are function-focused. They assume people in the system will take the desired behavior and it optimizes for usability, for efficiency, for functionality, technology. So it's kind of like a factory where you assume people in the factory will do their work, you pay them, and then you kind of figure out how to maximize that efficiency and production. Now, human-focused design remembers that people in the system have feelings, have motivation, have insecurities, and it optimizes for that. So that's like a theme park, where you design it to be really, really fun, and then you can automatically predict that people will want to line up for hours and hours just to enjoy the experience. Now, what's interesting here is that in the case of the factory, you're paying these people to do these, to do these desired behavior. But in the case of a theme park, they're paying you to stand in line for hours and hours because the experience is so fun. Now, the reason why we call this gamification is because the gaming industry is the first to master the human-focused design. And because if you think about it, you never have to play a game, right? You have to, go to do your taxes, go to school, do your training. So even if you don't like it, you just kind of suck it up and do it. But for a game, again, you never have to play it. The moment you don't enjoy this game, you leave the game. Play another game, you check your YouTube, you check your email. And then if you also think about it, games are always about, most games are about repetitive actions, right? Angry Birds, throwing out the bird, Candy Crush, smashing through jazz. That's really like grunt work, right? Doing the same things over and over for hours and hours every week. RPG games, killing the same monsters in the same stages over and over. So if games have spent decades or even centuries, depending on how you qualify games, to get people to voluntarily do this type of grunt work every single hour for days and weeks, we're now learning from that discipline, and that's what we call gamification. Now, this difference is very important for anyone who's launching a new product, entrepreneurs or big companies, because by definition, right, your clients don't need your product most of the time, because before you existed, they were fine, their life moved on. So the moment they don't enjoy your product, your system, your training program, they're gone. You lost them from a mentality standpoint. So this is like Google, right? Google Plus. Google Plus has a lot of technology, a lot of functionality. Google dumps so much resources and engineer into Google Plus, and everything pipes there. YouTube takes you to Google Plus, Gmail takes you to Google Plus. But when an actual user goes to Google Plus, they're like, whoa, this is confusing. confusing. What do? And they leave, right? That's a function-focused design versus human-focused design. And so I've been very lucky in the past 5-6 years. It has become a global movement. Like the intro said, I've been invited to all these different countries, from the Middle East to Japan, Fidelity, Japan, China, Huawei, Korea, all these places talk about gamification. But the problem is that most of these gamified apps attempts are still failing because of the bad design. They don't understand what actually makes the game fun. Most of them stick to what we call the PBLs, points, badges, leaderboards. They think, as long as I throw these game elements into their product, it'll automatically be fun and successful. And that didn't make any sense to me, because if you look at the market, every single game has game elements in them, right? But most games are still failures. Most games are still not successful. So it's pretty naive to think that, hey, if I just take those game elements, narrative quests that are even found in boring games, and put into my product, automatically becomes successful. That just doesn't happen. So good gamification does not start with the game elements, but start with our core drives. So this is where I introduced my Octalysis framework. So basically, I did many years of studies on what exactly makes a game successful. I studied a lot of clones, games that look exactly like each other, with small differences, but somehow one is extremely successful, one's a big failure. And I understood that, hey, look, it's not about the game elements that make a game successful, because all of them have it. It's not even the graphics. Sometimes a visually beautiful game is a big failure, and a slightly ugly game like Minecraft, let's say, becomes a huge success. What I did is I derived out in all these games, there's these 8 core drives that make it successful of motivation. And this is a busy chart, but in the center, these are the 8 core drives. So every single thing you do, inside or outside of the game, is based on these core drives. So it's based on one or more of these 8 core drives, which means that if there's none of these 8 core drives there, there's zero motivation, no behavior happening. So we're going to quickly go over these 8 core drives and then a little bit of the nature of it. The first one is called epic meaning and calling. So this is a drive that says, you are motivated because you feel like you're part of something bigger than yourself. So in a game, you often see this theme, right? Oh, the world's about to end, and somehow you're the only person qualified to save the world. It's very motivating. And I believe this is the core drive that motivates people to contribute to Wikipedia. We all know people don't contribute to Wikipedia because they make money, but they also don't do it to update their resumes. People contribute to Wikipedia because they believe they're protecting humanity's knowledge, something bigger than themselves. Core drive 2 is development and accomplishment. This is the feeling that you feel like you're engaged because you're improving yourself, you're leveling up, you're achieving mastery, and that's an engaging feeling. And this is where usually the points and badges, leaderboards lie, and it's all in this core drive 2 development and accomplishment. Just feeling progress and feeling that you achieve something. Core drive 3 is empowerment of creativity and feedback. So this is like Lego. You give users the basic building blocks, and there's an infinite amount of ways for them to utilize their creativity, see different strategies, see feedback, go back and adjust. And that's very engaging. And you'll learn later that this is what we call a white hat intrinsic motivation core drive. So every timeless game, poker, Go, Mahjong, StarCraft, games that people can play for decades have this core drive. This is on the right top. Core drive 4 is ownership and possession, which basically says because you feel like you own something, you want to improve it, you want to protect it, you want to get more of it. So this obviously deals with things like virtual goods, virtual currencies. It also is that drive to want to accumulate wealth, collect stamps, organize things. And it also deals with things more abstract, like if you put a lot of time into customizing your profile or your Dropbox system, you feel more attachment to it and ownership, so that even if there's a better technology that comes out, you don't want to change because that technology doesn't understand me. This one does. This is my system. So it's ownership, possession. Then we have core drive 5, social influence and relatedness. So this is basically what people do based on what others do, think, or say. So this deals with things like social treasure, gifting, group quests, competition, collaboration. It also has this relatedness piece, which is things like nostalgia. Like if you see a product that reminds you of your childhood, you automatically have a chance of buying that product. If you see someone from your hometown, you have a higher chance of striking a deal with that person. Core drive 6 is scarcity and impatience, which is the core drive that says you want something just because you can't have it. Like if grapes are on the table, you don't really care about those grapes. Maybe when you're bored, you might pick one, but you don't care. But if those grapes are locked in a glass shelf just beyond your reach, you're always thinking about those grapes. Can I have them? When can I have them? Are they even sweet? And so this is the core drive that Facebook used to launch. At the beginning, Facebook said, we're only for Harvard students. If you didn't get into Harvard, too bad, can't use Facebook. Then they said, well, we're open to a few Ivy League schools and some schools that your high school buddies got in, but you weren't smart enough to get it, too bad. Then they said, oh, we're open up to more schools. And when I was attending UCLA in 2004, it opened up to UCLA for year 1. Everyone rushed it. just because they couldn't get it. You know, the exclusivity is the driver. Now, this is the core drive that many social mobile games use to monetize too. So some people will say, well, you know, I'll play a game like Farmville, it's kind of fun, but I'll never spend real money on a stupid game like this. And then Farmville starts to dangle this mansion in front of her face. We talked about it in the last session, right? And like, oh wow, this looks kind of interesting. Let's see what I need to do to get this mansion. Oh man, I need to do 40 more hours of farming to get this mansion. That's a lot of farming, right? Oh, but wait, I just have to spend $5 and I get the mansion immediately. $5 to save 40 hours of my time. That's a no-brainer, suddenly. So you're not just spending $5 to buy some useless pixels on your screen, you're spending $5 to save your time. And the funny thing here is that these games are all technically free to play, right? So you play the game for free, and you're paying to play less of the game. So it's like, well, is the game fun or not? If it's fun, why are you paying money to skipping some of the gameplay? That's extrinsic motivation that we'll talk about. Core drive 7 is unpredictability and curiosity. This is the drive that says, because we don't know what's going to happen next, we're always thinking about it. This drive is obviously utilized heavily in the gambling industry, but whenever you have like a sweepstakes, a lottery system, a raffle ticket, utilize this core drive. It's also the drive that makes us want to finish a book or a movie. That's why we hate spoilers. And there's a lot of research behind this core drive. The most famous one is called the Skinner box. So scientists have put an animal in the box, and inside the box there's a little lever. The first experiment is that whenever the animal presses the lever, food comes out. And what you'll see there is that the animal will press the lever until it's no longer hungry because it doesn't need food anymore. Makes sense. But when you change the mechanic to the point where whenever the animal presses the lever, food may or may not come out. And sometimes two come out. What you'll see is that the animal constantly pressing the lever, regardless if it's hungry or not, because it's just messing with its brain, will it come out. You see gambling addiction right there in the little box. Core drive 8 is loss and avoidance, which is pretty straightforward. You want something, you're doing something because you want to avoid a loss. You don't want something bad to happen. Sometimes it also relates to you don't want to change your behavior. I call that status quo sloth. Like, there's all this reason to do something, to exercise, to do this, but that's kind of lazy. Never mind. You just don't end up doing it. Now, again, these are the 8 core drives that motivate us to do everything we do. Everything you do is based on one or more of these 8 core drives, which means that if none of them are there, then zero motivation, no behavior happens. But it's also graph and octagon shape for a reason. The ones on the left, I call them left brain core drives, which doesn't mean it's a graph on the left side of your brain, but it's your logical brain. And those deal with extrinsic motivation. So these are things you do for a reward, for a purpose, for a goal, but you don't necessarily enjoy the activity itself. So let's say your job sucks, it's to dig feces out of the ground, it smells bad, you hate it. And then someone shows up and says, hey, for every feces you dig out, I'll give you $10,000. And you're like, whoa, haha, this is easy money. And you start digging with a lot of enthusiasm and excitement. But it's important to remember that you're only excited because of the extrinsic motivation of money. But you still don't like to do it itself. Now, when we talk about on the right brain core drives deal more with intrinsic motivation. So these are things that you just enjoy to, you love to. You would even pay people money to do. You don't need a reward to enjoy user creativity or hang with your friends. You don't need a reward, actually, to be in this sense of unpredictability. In fact, if you sit there and press a button for 4 hours, guarantee the paycheck. That's kind of boring. That's like a job at a factory, it's not boring. But if you sit there and press a button for 4 hours, then maybe you'll get a paycheck. Maybe you won't. Maybe you'll lose money. Hey, that's suddenly casino gambling. That's fun suddenly. Obviously, even though the payout is worse, our brain craves that unpredictability, and we're willing to pay for that. So most companies like to design for left brain core drives because it's just so much easier to put a reward on the behavior you want to see as opposed to making it actually fun. The problem is that extrinsic motivation is proven to kill intrinsic motivation. So if I love to draw, and I always draw for free, science has shown that one of the best ways for you to get me to stop drawing is to first pay me to do it, and then pay me less and less, $5, $1, 20 cents, 5 cents. At one point, I will feel insulted and no longer want to draw. It's no longer worth my time. Even though before I met you, I drew for free. So you have transitioned my intrinsic joy of drawing into that extrinsic motivation of making money. In which case, when the money's not enough, you don't do it anymore. Now, you also notice the top core drives are more positive. I call them white hat gamification core drives. So these are core drives that make you feel powerful, in control, you feel good about it, but it does not create a sense of urgency. The ones on the bottom, we call them black hat gamification core drives. So these create urgency, obsession, even addiction. However, sometimes it leaves a bad taste in the user's mouth because you feel like you're not in control of your own action. You're only doing something to avoid a loss. You're always doing something to get something you can't get. And you're always just sucked into that unpredictability stability. You don't feel good, as opposed to epic meaning calling and achieving mastery. Now, I believe that the reason why Zynga is struggling is because they figured out how to do all this black hat game techniques. And they don't understand it that way because they don't have the framework. But at the end of the day, because of all the black hat creates urgency, right, and obsession. Their short-term metrics look great. Monetization, retention, virality. However, because people don't feel good playing Zynga games, when they can leave the system, they will want to, which is why I believe they show stagnant results. And we know Zynga is constantly pushing on the casino games lately, which the past few years, which is also black hat. They're very focused on the black hat drug. Blizzard, on the other hand, has never made a failed game. They focus a bit more on the white hat. Just because it's called black hat doesn't mean it's necessarily bad. Some people voluntarily put themselves in black hat gamification in order to go to the gym more often or eat more healthily. And so this is a funny example where this is an alarm clock where every time you press the snooze button, the wake me up 10 minutes from now button, it destroys your money. So you are waking up because of core drive 8, loss and avoidance, right? But you're okay with that because you want to wake up. That's a goal you want to accomplish. What people don't like is when governments, marketers, companies use black hat to get them to buy stuff they don't need, work overtime, manipulate them. But they're still going to do it because, again, this stuff is manipulative, obsessive. But again, when they can't escape, they will want to. Now, once you have the system, you can start to analyze why different things are engaging. You can look at, Facebook lacks epic meaning calling and scarcity. You can look at Farmville lacks epic meaning calling, but no unpredictability, right? You just know whenever you log in, then you're basically harvesting your crops and then planting more, nothing new. We can look at Candy Crush, more right-brain focused core drives. Twitter, LinkedIn is definitely more left-brain because it's about your career, right? It's like people feel like I need to have an account, but there's no intrinsic motivation. Your credit account sits there. You don't do anything on it. So that's why they've been trying to push these social influence drives, the endorsements that you're spamming people with, stuff like that. So once you understand how you want people to feel, and then you understand how they're feeling right now, that's when you go into the elements about maybe it's a group quest, maybe it's points, maybe it's badges, maybe it's a torture break. But the key is that you want to focus not on the elements, but on our psychology, why it drives the brain. And we don't have a lot of time, but just quickly saying that's level 1 Octalysis. There's actually 5 levels in total. I never talked about level 4 in public and beyond. But level 2 is basically applying that to different experience phases. So understanding what motivates them in the discovery phase, onboarding, scaffolding, endgame. Because whenever there's none of these 8 core drives, people drop out. And then you can push it another level to level 3 Octalysis, which facts from different player types and what motivates them. So you can think about, achievers, they want to try out the experience. Onboarding seems fine, but the scaffolding experience is annoying, so they drop out. Explorers don't even want to start. So you get to start optimizing your experience, whether it's your training program, your company product, your game, whatnot. And so that's, since